Get a lead, man. Get a chance to let the guys hunt. Tell them to get after the quarterback. Let those guys pass. That is fun, man. You know, playing 4-minute catch-up stuff, man. That's tough ball. Almost had a heart attack last week. Too young for that.
About time one went our way. You know, they've been really close games since I've been here. They've won the first 4, and they've all been close. I mean, I can think back to my rookie year. Went into Atlanta, had the lead down to the very end of the game, and they what's his name? Redmond came in and hit it on a 4th down. But you know, they're a great divisional opponent. You know, I got a lot of respect for those guys, offense and defense. You know, they're a good team. We'll get to see them again. Looking forward to that. But we had a play, but in that particular set, we were going to call timeout if they didn't jump. And then who knows? We might have gone back and tried to hard count them again. Who knows? But we were eventually going to get to a quarterback sneak, so.
Welcome to the Pewter Plank Recap here on Pewter Plank Radio Network. I am senior writer Josh Hill, recapping a wonderful day to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, to be a Buccaneers player, a coach, anything associated with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You ought to be proud of who you are, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get their first home win, they get their first divisional win, and they get the first win against the Atlanta Falcons in the Raheem Morris, Josh Freeman era. We are going to be recapping that game very shortly here, but we are extending this show, and we are including a wonderful interview with Patrik Nohe, the senior editor and the lead writer over at thepewterplank.com. He will be joining me shortly. We will be talking about the Buccaneers win over the Atlanta Falcons. We will be talking about Josh Freeman and his uncanny ability to get the Buccaneers a victory, and the Buccaneers defense and their uncanny ability to, despite giving up 140 yards to Roddy White and 150 to Julio Jones, their uncanny ability to keep those two monsters out of the end zone and put up a big W in the win column for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But let's get to game recap, because it was a wonderful game. Donald Penn had a wonderful quote before the game where he said, "Good thing the game starts at 4 because we don't show up until 3:30 anyways." That was the case in Week 1. It was the case in Week 2 against Minnesota. But that win in Minnesota last week, I think, sparked something in this team to light a fire under them and get them to do something in the first half. Because guess what? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers scored a point in the first quarter. They scored 3, to be exact. It was Connor Barth. He was able to get the Buccaneers a field goal in the first quarter. So let's kick off some game recap here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. Scoring first, your Buccaneers at the 1:24 mark. It was Connor Barth, 49-yard field goal, makes it a 3-0 game in favor of the Buccaneers. In the second quarter, Matt Bryant, a former Buccaneer, he hits a 26-yard field goal to tie the game up at 3. Josh Freeman, he didn't throw a touchdown today, but he didn't stop himself from getting himself 6 points. He runs it in from a yard out. Connor Barth kicks the extra point. That comes in the second quarter at the 3:39 mark. It makes it 10-3 Tampa. And then, after the Atlanta Falcons fumble the ball away with just above 2 minutes to go in the game, or in the first half, Connor Barth is able to hit a 26-yard field goal after a 4-play Buccaneers drive to make it 13-3 and a 10-point lead for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the hot Atlanta Falcons. Hot out of the gates in the second quarter, another Connor Barth field goal. This one at the 6:54 mark. It came after a 16-play, 70-yard drive for the Buccaneers, which ate off 8 minutes and 10 seconds off the clock. And that's a huge stat, too, because we saw this happen to the Buccaneers in the first week of the season against the Detroit Lions, where they fell behind, and then they saw the clock just tick, 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 tick away, and their hopes go with the clock as it ticked down. This time, Tampa Bay was on the delivering end of that fatal blow to the Atlanta Falcons. After an 8-minute, 10-second drive, Connor Barth makes it a 16-3 game. This is where you get excited as a Bucs fan, but you also have to realize that you are playing the Atlanta Falcons, led by Matty Ice Ryan. You got Tony Gonzalez, Julio Jones, Roddy White, Michael Turner, These guys are dangerous, and they showed what they can do if you let up on them even a little bit. Because it takes 2 plays and 59 yards for the Atlanta Falcons to fire back some points of their own. It ended in a 10-yard touchdown pass from to Tony Gonzalez from Matt Ryan. It made it a 16-10 game. But then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense put the brakes on the offense of the Atlanta Falcons. All the Falcons are able to get is a 33-yard Matt Bryant field goal to make it 16-13. That came after a 13-play, 53-yard drive, which ate off 3 minutes and 40 seconds from the clock. And the Falcons did that to themselves because you have 4 minutes and 11 seconds left in the game. This is where it gets interesting because Tampa Bay now has the ball. Atlanta has all 3 timeouts. Tampa Bay runs the ball, comes down to the 2-minute warning, and it is 4th and 1. They reviewed it. LeGarrette Blount did not get across the first down marker. 4th and 1. So what does Raheem Morris do? He sends Josh Freeman back out onto the field. Mind you, you are deep inside of your own territory at this point. The Bucs don't get this. They set the Atlanta Falcons up big time with a sweet spot to not only tie the game, but give them a golden opportunity to go ahead in the game and put the dagger in Bucs fans' hearts like we've seen done 4 times previous under this current regime. Now, 4th and 1. What does Josh Freeman do? He doesn't give it to LeGarrette Blount. He doesn't sneak it himself. He doesn't even throw the ball. He draws the Atlanta Falcons off sides. Move the chains, chalk up a W. Josh Freeman doing it with his arm last week, doing it with his mind this week. He beats the Atlanta Falcons 16-13. The final score on that one. And it's just an incredible way to end the game. You have the Falcons come in here. It looks like they're going to get one more shot. And what do? They jump off sides. I still can't get over it myself. It was an amazing way to end the game. And it comes at a time when Josh Freeman only threw 180 yards in the game. That's a big stat because last week we saw him explode in the second half against the Vikings defense. This week, he didn't necessarily explode at all at any point during the game. But his 180 yards is overshadowed by his just absolute leadership that he shows this team that we saw again. We saw it last week and we saw it this week. The statistics are different, but the leadership, the swagger, the confidence, the energy that he gives this Buccaneers squad is the exact same. Both games ended in wins. Both games are now in the books as Josh Freeman victories. Mark them. Josh Freeman won this game for the Bucs, but it can be argued that the defense won the game as well. We will get to that in a second. But offensive stats for the Buccaneers, of course, 180 yards passing for Josh Freeman. He throws 2 picks. That's big too. You have 2 picks from Josh Freeman. In any other game last year, Josh Freeman throws 2 interceptions. The game is highly, highly in doubt in terms of its result. This year, against the Atlanta Falcons no less, Josh Freeman throws 2 interceptions. His passer rating is 56.8. He doesn't get to 200 yards passing. He doesn't throw any touchdowns, but he's able to lead the team to a win. And it's incredible. Even today, the day after, it's still intoxicating to think of what Josh Freeman did yesterday to the Atlanta Falcons and how he did it. He didn't do it through statistics. He did it with his mind. He did it with swagger. He did it with his teammates. And that's the leadership quality that a lot of NFL quarterbacks need, and Josh Freeman has in only his 3rd year as a player, his 2nd as a starter. LeGarrette Blount, he goes for 81 yards, 24 carries, doesn't get a touchdown. Josh Freeman had the lone rushing touchdown, and he himself went for 35 yards and had 14 less carries than Blount did. Freeman goes 10 carries, 35, and a touchdown. In the receiving category, it was all across the board, but nobody reached the 50 mark. Mike Williams came the closest. He had 43 yards on 5 catches. Ernest Graham had 37 yards on 7 catches. And the big man, the rookie, Luke Stocker, had 2 catches for 33 big-time yards. And his countermate in the wideout slot, or in the tight end slot, Kellen Winslow, K2, had 2 receptions for 20 yards. No receivers got to the end zone because, again, Josh Freeman had the lone touchdown for the Bucs, and he did it with his legs. But just to see the way that the ball was spread around and just to see the way that Josh Freeman was leading everybody, it was great to see everything that went down for the Buccaneers yesterday against the Falcons defensively, where the offense stumbled, and they did stumble because those are not impressive offensive stats. 180 yards passing, your running back only gets 81 yards, and none of your receivers hit the half 100 mark. The defense makes up for it. They forced 2 fumbles and recover both of them. Rondé Barber and Michael Bennett recover the fumbles for the Buccaneers. And you also have an interception. Rondé Barber showing that age does not mean a thing. He's got a fumble recovery and he's got an interception on the day. And those 3 turnovers, turned out to be big. The 2 that occurred towards the end of the first half were absolutely monstrous to continuing the momentum for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because you had one that resulted in a field goal, which made it a 13-3 game, so a 10-point game. And then the other one, the interception, came at the end of the Falcons' drive when they were driving down the field, and it looked like they were going to get some points and narrow the gap to a touchdown again. You have an interception that slams the door shut on that drive, and that, I believe, was carried into the second half, and the Buccaneers just never let their foot up off of the throats of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, after that, and Atlanta is only held to a field goal in that drive where Roddy White was targeted and he was absolutely shut down. Josh Freeman does his thing, and the rest, as they say, is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers victory. Looking at the box score and looking at the statistics, overall, not too impressive of a day for Josh Freeman. But again, he makes up for it with his swagger. He makes up for it with the energy that he gives the Buccaneers. And he makes up for it because they won. They beat the Falcons. They get a home win. The Bucs are now 2-1. They're dead even with the New Orleans Saints, with the Atlanta Falcons, and the Carolina Panthers looking up at them in the NFC South. Big matchup next week against the Indianapolis Colts. And a great game today by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We will be talking more in depth about some specific areas of the game, like Josh Freeman and his consistency. We will be talking about Roddy White and Julio Jones and their ineffectiveness to get into the end zone. All of that we'll be talking with Patrik Nohe, the top dog over at pewterplank.com. He will be joining me next. This is the Pewter Plank Recap on Pewter Plank Radio Network. New segment here on the Pewter Plank Recap. I am being joined right now by Patrik Nohe. He is the man, the top dog over at the pewterplank.com. We're going to be talking about the excellent divisional win that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were able to get away with today. How you doing, Patrik, after this win?
I'm doing fantastic. The Bucs could not have played better this afternoon. This was a huge win for them to get right now.
It is, and it came despite the fact that Josh Freeman was only able to throw 180 yards. He threw 2 picks. He ran in for a touchdown, but he had that big-time, crucial false start draw that he had at the end of the game that gave the Bucs the win. What out of Josh Freeman do you see that will give you the confidence he can lead the Bucs to the playoffs?
With Josh Freeman, it's all about the boxing. I mean, at the end of the day, what his stats say, they're really largely irrelevant. It's based on how he leads the team. And he's the type of guy that this team buys into and they believe into when they're ready to come back and when they're ready to get into a game. They believe Josh Freeman can lead them back. They believe Josh Freeman can lead the drive. And he has shown in every possible juncture that he is ready to step up and be just that elite NFL quarterback. And today was no different. He didn't have a spectacular day from a statistical standpoint. But when you look at what he needed to do, what he needed to accomplish when the ball was in his hands, he did it every single time. And, you know, if you look at what the Bucs were able to accomplish in Tampa, they won against a very talented Atlanta Falcons team. And yes, it's not exactly sexy. You're not going to look at the box score and say, oh, wow, Josh Freeman really outclassed Matt Bryant. But at the end of the day, when Josh Freeman had the ball in his hands and needed to make plays, he made the plays. He continued to, he was able to continue the drives. He was able to continue the success that the Tampa Bay offense had. And that's what you have to have. I mean, beyond everything else, you have to have a quarterback that can win today. And Josh Freeman did that for the Bucs today. He'll continue to do that for the Bucs, and he's fantastic. I mean, that's one thing, even independently of statistics. Josh Freeman is a winner, and it doesn't have to be spectacular. He just is done.
Those are all good points, and I agree with them exactly. I mean, Josh Freeman is the guy that the Bucs have been looking for a while. I personally believe if they had a quarterback at the beginning of the decade with the Warren Sapp defense, a lot more Super Bowls would be in the Tampa Trophy case right now. But the defense is something I want to talk about right now, because what they did today was they were able to contain two of the biggest receivers in the NFC South. You have Roddy White. He was able to get 140 yards. Julio Jones, he was able to get 115 yards, but both were held out of the end zone. What did you see from the defense's secondary that impressed you most about this win against the Falcons?
Oh, it's a classic bend but don't break secondary, and the defense has done that very well throughout the beginning of the season, and I think they'll continue to do that. They understand that, you're going to give up yards. You're playing in a very, very talented division. I mean, Atlanta, they saw, face-to-face today. The Saints are a very talented team as well. You're not going to be able to just stymie them and stop them from getting any yardage at all. But what's important is keeping them from scoring touchdowns. And that's what Tampa Bay was able to do today. They were able to keep the Atlanta Falcons offense from scoring 7. They kept them to 3. They kept them inside the red zone. They were able to do a number of things that were very successful. They were able to give their offense an opportunity to hold the ball, score some points, and to really put to put the team in position to win the game. And that's really what you have to do. You're never going to be able to, in the NFC South, be able to expect to just stymie every single offense and just hold them without points. They're going to score points. There are some great offenses in this division. But if you could hold them, like the Bucs did today, to underneath 20 points, and to make sure that your offense has a chance to beat the game to win, you're going to be in the position you want to be in. Tampa can win more often than they lose if their offense has the last shot at the game. Josh Freeman has proven over and over again he is the type of quarterback. He wants the ball in his hands in the last minute of the game. He wants to win. He is not worried about losing. But at the same time, you can't have a defense that is concerned about giving up too many points. You have to understand you're going to give up 20 to 25 points per game against the Saints, against the Falcons, against some of these better NFC teams. There's nothing wrong with that. You just have to make sure that at the end of the game, you're in position to be driving the ball down the field and winning the game. And if Tampa can do that, they will win more than they lose this year. But unfortunately, the situation they've been in the first 2 games of the year is that they've been behind the 8 ball too early, and they're, trying to make too much up late in the game, and that's not what will work for them. So they need to find themselves early on, driving the ball, get in some position where if it comes down to the last drive, they've got the ball in their hands, they know they've got a very talented quarterback, but at the same time, they can't get into shootouts. They're not the type of defense that is going to be able to win shootouts, so they have to be smart about this. I think Tampa Bay's in a great position, but at the same time, if you're not smart, if you let the Saints, you let the Falcons start to throw the ball a whole bunch, you let them score a lot of points, those are the type of games you're going to win. Tampa Bay's 2-1 right now. They're exactly where you want to be. But, you got to take it a week at a time, and I think Raheem Morris is the perfect coach to take it like that.
Yeah, we definitely saw how much the NFC South is capable of scoring in that New Orleans Saints game where they put up 40 big ones on the Houston Texans, who the Buccaneers get to play both teams this year too, so maybe we can do it to the Texans what the Saints did to them. But I want to talk about Michael Turner. He was a big weapon that the Falcons have in the backfield. He did absolutely nothing today. Looking at the stat sheet, Michael Turner, 11 carries, 20 yards, no touchdowns. His longest carry was 9 yards. Was this a shutdown by the Buccaneers defense, or was this Michael Turner just having a bad day?
I think it's a mixture of both, to be honest with you. I think that the Buccaneers front, you want to say the front 7, but it's really the front 4. They played a great game today. They were able to limit what the running backs for Atlanta were going to do. They knew coming into this game that Atlanta is, their success is positive on the success of the running backs. So you can shut down them, you're going to be able to have some success. You're going to be able to pin your ears back, go after Matt Ryan. And the Tampa Bay front 4 did that. They're not where they want to be yet. I still think that they have a ways to go in terms of where they want to be in terms of affecting pressure on the quarterback, and in terms of, really just being a dominant front defensive line. But at the same time, they can really look at their performance today, and I don't want them to hang their hats on it and feel good about it quite yet because it's early. But they took one of the best running backs in the NFL. and they effectively rendered him moot. He was not in any way, shape, or form an impact on this game. And that's what you have to have from your defensive line. That's when they drafted the guys like Bowers and Claiborne for. That's what you want out of those guys. Even if you don't get the great pressure, even if you're not, sacking the quarterback 4 or 5 times a game, if you're shutting down that other running back, if you can score and you can get efficient, effective pressure on a consistent basis, that's exactly what this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense needs. And, they saw today. This is a fantastic Atlanta Falcons team. There is no reason that they should ever apologize for anything they did against this team. This is a great Atlanta Falcons team. They came into Tampa, the Bucs needed their best shot, and the Bucs came out victorious. That in itself is fantastic. They can build off that. They get the Bucs one more time, or they get the Falcons one more time. They're going to be able to, hopefully finish with a 2-0 record. But that's exactly where you want to be. This was the first litmus test for this Buccaneers team, and they passed with flying colors. They're now 2-1. You'd like to be 3-0, but you're 2-1. You're in a very good position. You beat the Falcons. You are going to be ready to go. This Buccaneers team has all the weapons they need, and I really do believe that they're going to challenge down the line for the NFC South title. And if they don't get that, they're going to be in the playoffs on the wild card.
You love the people that love you. You hear the music they move to.
Welcome into segment number 3 of the Pewter Plank Recap. We are talking with editor of thepewterplank.com, Patrik Nohe, about yesterday's 16-13 win by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Atlanta Falcons. Now, these two teams, they meet the last week of the NFL regular season. Where do you see the Buccaneers at that time? Where do you see the Falcons? And what is the magnitude of that matchup week 17 in Atlanta?
I'll be totally honest. I think that matchup decides the division. That would be the ultimate decision for who wins the NFC South. I think the Buccaneers are growing. They're a team that has so much to strive to. There's so much talent. They are a very, very, very promising young team. And as they continue to grow, as they continue to get comfortable, as they continue to see top-notch competition, I think they'll be in real competition to win the NFC South. And I think it will come down to the last matchup. I think that the Saints are a very talented team, but they're a little bit gray, and they're a little long in the tooth. They're a little bit gray. I think they're going to, step back a bit in the pack. I think they might be a wild card contender, but I don't think they're on the level with the Bucs. I think it comes down to the Falcons and the Bucs in the last week of the season. And honestly, I think that that's one game that the Bucs can, if they play to the level of, if they play to their potential, they can win that game. I think they absolutely can win that game. They've got everything to build to. The Falcons aren't going to get that much better. They know what they've got on that team. They're one of the best teams in the NFC, but they're not building to anything. The Bucs, they have so much to build to. They have so much potential on that team. And as every week goes by and every win continues to come in for them, I really do believe that they're going to do a great job. I think they're going to be the team to beat the NFC South. And I really do think it will come down to the Falcons and the Bucs in that last game of the season.
Now, next week is the Monday Night Football matchup against the Peyton Manning-less Indianapolis Colts. This week, Donald Penn, the offensive lineman for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, came out with the quote that it's a good thing that the game started at 4 o'clock because the Bucs don't show up till 3:30. They did show up at 3:30. They did show up in the first quarter. They did show up in the first half, and it was very nice. Do you see them doing that again next week against the Indianapolis Colts, even though they don't have, Peyton Manning? Are they still a dangerous opponent for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and is it a game that could potentially slip away from them and even them out at 2-2?
Well, this will be one of those interesting games where the Bucs should win this game. There is no excuse for losing to the Colts, especially with Peyton Manning out. They have to win this game. They know what's in front of them. They know it's a talented team, but without the leader. And you have Josh Freeman. You have to step up. You have to win that game. Tampa needs to win this game coming up. Now, could I see them losing it? Absolutely. I've seen a number of games where some backup comes in, the team binds together, and they find themselves in the right situation to win. But if Tampa wants to be taken seriously, if they want to have a legitimate shot at getting to the playoffs and winning the NFC South, you have to beat the Colts. This is an opportunity to beat one of the top teams in football when they're down. And that's what the best teams in football do. It doesn't matter who you're playing against, it matters how they are. And if you can beat a team that's down, every top team in football can beat a team that's down. The Colts are without their quarterback. You know that coming into the game. You have to be able to put them away by a couple of scores. If you go 3-1 in the first 4 weeks of the season with a win over the Colts, a win over the Falcons, everyone is going to sit there and say, okay, this Bucs team can play. You know, you've got the respect, and now you can just worry about week by week coming into it. But if they lose to this Colts team, there is no excuse. Curtis Painter, I don't mean to belittle anybody because, God forbid, you know, I could not play at the position he plays at. I don't have near the skill level of Curtis Painter, but he is a horrible quarterback. And I don't mean to belittle the man, but he's terrible. He's just terrible. I've watched him play probably 5 or 6 games. He should not be able to beat an NFL team. And if the Bucs come in and lose to the Colts, then that's going to be your indication right there. They weren't ready. You know, they're not the team we thought they were going to be. But the Bucs need to win against the Colts next week. They need to have a solid showing. Peyton Manning is out. Shouldn't really be an issue. If they can do that, they'll be 3-1 heading into the last 12 games of the week, or 12 games of the year, and I think they're going to be in position to win and go into the playoffs and really impact for the season.
All right, we're going to end with one final question, bringing it back to today's game, the big-time divisional home game win against the Atlanta Falcons. Did you see anything offensively, besides Josh Freeman's leadership, that is going to give you confidence that the Bucs can move forward and beat the Colts, beat the NFC South, and make a serious run at the Super Bowl? Besides Josh Freeman's leadership, what else on the offense do the Buccaneers have that really impresses you?
You know, I've said consistently, and I will be completely honest, a large part of this comes from the fact that I am a Florida State University alumnus and that I've watched this school play for a long time. But Preston Parker is the best slot receiver on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. And I continue to believe that if he is given more opportunities to really, you know, stretch his wings in the Buccaneers offense, if he's given more shots at catching the ball, he is fantastic. When he was in college, he was regularly compared to Percy Harvin. And the biggest knock against Percy Harvin in the NFL is the fact that he has a concussion. Well, Preston Parker does not have that issue. You saw him last week when he finally got a chance to start and play a full game. He had 8 receptions for nearly 100 yards and a touchdown, including a huge 3rd and 4 reception that pretty much sealed the deal against the Vikings. I think Preston Parker is hands down the answer for the slot receiver position. I really do think that it's Mike Williams, Desmond Briscoe, and Preston Parker are the top 3 receivers. And if you give those 3 guys the opportunity to run their routes without worrying about looking over their shoulders, I think that you're going to see Josh Freeman really come into his own this season. He has 3 fantastic receivers. He's got Aurelius Ben coming off injury, who's going to do nothing but improve and going to give him a legitimate deep threat. I really do think this team has a ton of talent in their receiving corps, and a lot of it starts with Preston Parker. He's a very, very talented player. He should have been a first-round pick if he had finished at the Florida State University. Unfortunately, he was kicked out and went to North Alabama. But I think that that is one player that can continue to have success in the Buccaneers offense, and I think that, you know, the Bucs are going to be very, very, very happy that they hung on to him through training camp over the last couple of years, because he is going to amount to a lot.
And of course, you can't forget the big guy tight ends that the Bucs have, because Luke Stalker looked very impressive today, and there is Kellen Winslow. So if Preston Parker can do what you say he does, and it's looking like he's going to, I see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a lot of weapons to kill a lot of teams. He's Patrik Nohe.
Luke Stalker, he didn't come with a lot of fanfare in the preseason. He was hurt through part of it. He didn't get the opportunity to really show what he could do. But he's a very talented young man himself. And, I mean, if you can really legitimately put him opposite Kellen Winslow and put a 2 tight end set out there with the receiving ability I think they both have, that is unmatchable. I mean, you really can't say that you feel comfortable putting 2 linebackers on Stalker and Winslow and, you know, also having a couple receivers out there. That is a really great matchup for the Bucs. I mean, they've got a ton of talent. I mean, you know, you can't look at this Buccaneers roster and be disappointed with the potential they have. It's all just a matter of whether they're a playoff-ready team this year or whether it's next year. But regardless, this team has plenty to build on.
He's Patrik Nohe. He is the editor and lead writer over at thepewterplank.com. Hopefully we can do this next week. What do you think about that, Patrik?
I can't wait for next week, Josh. And honestly, we'll just announce this right now. You are now officially the assistant editor over at Pewter Plank. You will probably be taking my place by the end of the next football year. But you've done a fantastic job, my friend. I can't even begin to talk about how talented you are as a writer. And, anybody that's listening to this right now really needs to just follow you on Twitter, read all your articles, and you're ready for you to start writing for a major paper, because it won't be long before you are the next big thing coming out of Fanside.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Patrick. That's taking me, kind of choking me up here. What a great win today by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Great words from the great Patrik Nohe. We will see you next week, Patrick, hopefully on the flip side of a Tampa Bay Buccaneers Monday Night Football win. We'll see you next week, Patrick. Thanks for stopping by.
I will talk to you next week. Have a good one.
All right, you too. And we will return quickly here on the Pewter Plank recap to preview what we haven't previewed about the next matchup against the Indianapolis Colts. And then we will let you on your way and you can get going with your morning. We will be back on the Pewter Plank recap. Recapping what you might have missed earlier on the show, we kicked it off with the patented gameplay recap of a wonderful Tampa Bay Buccaneers win, 16-13 over the Atlanta Falcons. Hot Atlanta cooled off in Tampa. They ain't hot no more. They're looking up at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC South. They're 1-2. Tampa Bay 2-1 and on even par with the New Orleans Saints. We then talked about that win with editor and lead writer over at the Pewter Plank, Patrik Nohe. We went in depth about Josh Freeman. We went in depth about Julio Jones and Roddy White getting shut down by the secondary of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we also did a little bit of preview for next week's matchup. Monday Night Football showdown with the Peyton Manning-less Indianapolis Colts in the Ray J, Tampa, Florida. That's next week. You can look for the Pewter Plank recap Tuesday morning, hopefully recapping a Tampa Bay Buccaneers win. Like Patrick said, it's a very winnable game, but we are prepared for everything. We are going to be able to see if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the real deal or not. That's next week. Indianapolis Colts in Tampa, in the Ray J, and we will see you on the flip side of that. Hopefully it's a W. And hopefully we have more proof after that game that Josh Freeman and this Tampa Bay Buccaneers squad is real deal playoff material. We will see you then. I am senior writer Josh Hill over at thepewterplank.com. Check us out all week. The doctor's in the house on Wednesday. He's got your everything you need to know. Dr. Mark McKenna, he's in there. Check him out on Wednesday. That kicks off the best Bucs preview coverage out there. It's thepewterplank.com. If you haven't already checked it out, you're missing out. We'll see you next week on the Pewter Plank recap. You have